start decks for Overdress were released back in May of 2021 and were followed by set 1 merely a week later. Since then, we have received quite a few more sets. And with the Overdress anime having aired its final episode and the DivineZ era looming over the horizon, we thought it would be appropriate to look back at all the units we have received. Doing every nation in one video would make for quite a lengthy video, so we're going to break it up into the 6 main nations and then do all the extras in one last video. Alright, change of plans for the final video. I'd forgotten that Token Rambu is receiving a new set, and that means I have to read way more cards than I thought. So we are going to split the collab sets into their own videos and leave Token Rambu for the end, which will hopefully give me more time to learn what they do, because I will be honest with you, I haven't looked at them at all, and having very low knowledge on the first wave of them, I'd rather not just put out a video where I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So we're just going to split them up. You'll get some extra videos. That's why this video is releasing on Wednesday instead of on Tuesday when I wanted it to, because I realized, holy shit, I don't know what these units are going to do, and I really should learn what they do. But the order is going to be DragonTree and Record of Ragnarok today, so the Record of Ragnarok should release a little bit later than this video, if not alongside it. And then on Thursday we have Shaman King, and then on Friday we have Token Rambu. Although it's very unlikely that Record of Ragnarok or Shaman King will receive support, they were still a part of Overdress, and we should talk about them. With the disclaimer out of the way, let's start up with DragonTree. Griphogila is the deck starter and allows us to bend the rules of both the right deck and the deck size. You're allowed to have 5 cards in the right deck, 1 Griphogila, 3 Calamity cards, and the OT. So, overall, your deck will be made up of 55 cards instead of the normal 54. The Calamity cards need to be different names to get the full effect of Griphogila, so although you could just run the same one, you do need them to be different for this. Then Griphogila has 2 other abilities. The first gives him plus 2k for each different named Calamity card in Soul. This doesn't specify that it's only the ones that you have in your right deck, so if you found a way to put others in there, he would become stronger, but no real way to do that if you're locked into grade 0s. And then how you get them there might be a concern if you've never read this card. That's where his final ability comes in, which states that at the beginning of the main phase, you can put a Calamity card from your right deck into your Soul, and then you can return 3 Calamity cards from your Soul that were in the right deck to the right deck, face up, and search your deck for the grade 10 Griphogila, and then write it. If you write the card, you get to place 2 DragonTree markers on rearguard circles. But let's move on and talk about the DragonTree markers before we move on to Griphogila. DragonTree markers can only go on rearguard circles, and they provide the unit on them with a 5k power boost during your turn if you have Vanguard with either Mask or DragonTree in its name. Now let's move on to talking about the grade 10 Griphogila. Obviously, this is the highest grade unit we've ever seen. It has 2 abilities. The first grants it plus 5k for every DragonTree marker you control. If you own at least 3, he gains a crit. His second ability is a bit more interesting. When he attacks, you choose a face-up Calamity card in your right deck and remove it from the game. If you are unable to remove a Calamity card, however, you get to reveal the over trigger from your right deck and activate both its trigger effects and its additional effects. You also then resend all of your rearguards on DragonTree markers, which means the deck can gain access to 5 attacks, although you're not going to be able to do that until at the earliest turn 6, so you're going to have to survive for a pretty long time, and although it is worth it to get there, it is a struggle, especially when your game plan is pretty much telegraphed as soon as you flip over that Griphogila or your opponent asks you how many cards are in your right deck. Then Griphogila received 2 support orders to help it out. The first is the Mask of Hydrogram that just lets you check that 5 for a DragonTree unit or Mask unit and add it to hand. You're pretty much just searching for the DragonTree units to get some added search power and some filtering, so you can find your Persona Rise a little bit faster. The second order is way more impactful than the Mask. Corrosive Smoke Signals is a grade 0 blitz order that works only if your Vanguard is a Hydrogram, which both Griphogila and Griphogila are. It allows you to choose a rearguard without a DragonTree marker and place one. It then gives a unit being attacked plus 10k. If your Vanguard is Griphogila, it will give the unit plus 20k instead of plus 10k. Unfortunately, Griphogila doesn't count towards this bonus, so until you get to the grade 10, it'll just be a 10k shield. This order does allow you to stack DragonTree markers by allowing you to place them before you ride into the grade 10. And you might be wondering, why would I want to stack markers? Isn't it better to just fill the board so you can resend the units? And the answer to that question is Griphogila's evolved form, Vortex. Vortex is an 18k grade 11 with 4 abilities. For right now, we'll skip the first ability as it's quite complicated and it might confuse some. So we'll just move along to the second ability. This ability gives Vortex plus 10k in a crit during your turn. No cost, no nothing, just a free 10k in a crit, which means a 28k crit Vanguard is just always going to be available to you. The third ability gives Vartex another 10k if the amount of Hydreigon or DragonTree markers on your rearguard is 10 or more. This ability persists during either player's turn, meaning you get a 20k Vanguard that makes guarding attacks way easier than it would normally. The final ability is reminiscent of the Grade 10 form in that it can remove a Calamity card, and if you can't remove, you get to activate a trigger unit from your right deck. You might have noticed that I didn't say over trigger and instead said trigger unit. Although now you can't play the Shaman King OT, the deck can activate more than just an over trigger. But how do you get other triggers into the right deck if Griphogila only allows you to put the OT in there for its deck building restrictions? And that's where we go back to the ability we skipped. Vartex's first ability gives you the Eschatology token when it's placed on Vanguard. Let's take a look at the token to learn when it provides Vartex. The first trigger is at the beginning of the main phase. It allows you to search your deck, get a trigger, and put it into your right deck face up. If you put a card, you get to call a Hydreigon from your drop and call it to rearguard. So it allows you to get extra triggers into the right deck and recover any lost Hydreigon. But that's not it. The second ability allows you to speed up Vartex's fourth ability. You can discard a card with Griphogila, being either the Grade 10 or the Grade 11 in its card name, to draw a card and put a DragonTree marker on a rearguard. This one doesn't specify a rearguard without one, so you can stack them with this ability. Then you can put a card from your deck into your damage zone face down to remove a Calamity card from the right deck. You have to be careful. You can kill yourself with this ability, so you have to make sure that you stay at least at 4 damage before you activate this ability, so that at best, or at worst, it'll put you to 5. So now instead of turn 6, you can get your OT off on turn 5, which might seem like a slight change, but it makes surviving to that long a little easier. Let's now discuss all the cards that each nation has received that supports either DragonTree markers or Griphogila. Starting with Brancate, that has a total of 11 units, tied with another nation for the most support that a nation has received. We have 2 Wretches, Lloyd and Cyber, which are both Hydreigon, so you can find them with Mask of Hydreigon and also return them back with the Eschatology token. Lloyd allows you to make a DragonTree marker for a CB, and when you play a set order from your hand, you can counterblast 1 to check top 5 and call a unit with grade less than equal to your Vanguard in the same column as him. Then we have Cyber, who can counterblast 1 and soul blast 1 to make a DragonTree marker and search your deck for a Mask of Hydreigon. These units are pretty much going to be the same across every nation. Every nation receives both a grade 1 and grade 2. The only thing that changes is the grade 1's second ability. Their ability to make DragonTree markers is also restricted to only being able to place them on rearguards that do not have one already, so you're not able to stack them with the Wretches. But let's move on to some of the other grade 1s. We have Baleful Crusher, that allows you to discard a card when it boosts to draw a card if your Vanguard is Griphogila. Then there's Plague Batoidia, who can retire itself at the end of turn if it's on a DragonTree marker to get a set order back from drop. Then lastly for the grade 1s is Revamp 8-03, who gains plus 5k during your turn if your Vanguard is Mask or DragonTree. Nothing too exciting here, but you do have some choices. Being able to search for set orders is pretty cool. But let's move on to the grade 2s, which there are 3 of. We have Gold Beltus, that allows you to search your deck for a set order if you have 3 DragonTree markers and pay a CB when it's called from hand. Next is Gyrium Dragon, that lets you draw a card for a Counterblast and a Soul Blast if you have at least 3 DragonTree markers. Then the last one here is another grade 2, Rubble Pile Dragon, that gains plus 10k when placed if your Vanguard is Griphogila. We have some card draw, power, searching, so some decent units here overall. Then lastly for the grade 3s, we have another 3 choices, starting with Spatial Reaction Dragon. They can restand for 2 CB when your Vanguard with Mask or DragonTree attacks if it is on a DragonTree marker. This is something I wish worked better, but even Gravidia and Orpheus can't use it, as they both call units on attack, so there's no reason to restand this guy. As for DragonTree itself, the deck eats quite a bit of CB, so the cost is a bit too high, as well as you just being able to restand your units once you get to the over trigger turn. But moving on from him, we have Volheimer Dragon, that has a simple effect. During your turn, it gains plus 2k for each of your DragonTree markers on rearguard. But although this ability is quite good, it gets quickly outclassed by the last grade 3 that has the exact same effect while being a 15k base and having an additional power gain effect. Terra's Vacuum gains plus 2k for each set order in your order zone during your turn, and this will most likely be your main attacker in any Brancate DragonTree deck. But moving on from Brancate, we have Dark States, that similarly to Brancate, that also has 2 DragonTree Wretches. The grade 1 is Demon Shiritter, that makes the DragonTree marker for a CB and can call a grade 1 or less unit from Soul to the same column as him for a Soul Blast 2. And then there's the grade 2 Skull Kemda, that is identical to the Brancate one, so Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, get a DragonTree marker to a rearguard that doesn't have one, search your deck for masks. Let's move on to the supporting units. We have 2 grade 1s, 2 grade 2s, and 1 grade 3. Not nearly as many as Brancate, even though Dark State has the most mask units themselves. But let's start with the grade 1s. And starting off is Apathetic Usurper, that can soul charge 1 at the end of turn if it's on a DragonTree marker. Some extra soul is always nice, especially since Griphogila will make you lose all of it when it returns the Calamity cards back to the right deck. The other grade 1 is Spooky Chirper, who can soul charge 1 when it boosts while being on a DragonTree marker, and it also gains plus 5k, so a 13k attacker that, or 13k booster, excuse me, that gives you some extra soul is always nice. Then we have the grade 2s. We start with Brawl Fuel Hydra. They can counterblast 1 to call a grade 3 or lower from soul when it's placed if you have at least 3 DragonTree markers. I doubt you'll have the options for this in soul, but it's something to consider. Then following the Hydra, we have Zalios that gains plus 5k power and shield if it's on a DragonTree marker. The added shield will help in staying alive until you get to that OT turn. And then the last unit is similar to Brankgate's last unit, Stalemate Dragon. Gains plus 2k for each DragonTree marker, and it also gains plus 2k for every 3 cards in soul. Not likely this will gain much power from the soul ability, but there are some cards here that provide the soul and power, so you could do something with it. But following Dark States, we have Dragon Empire with a total of 8 units. 2 wretches, just like the previous 2. The grade 1 can Soul Blast 1 to check top 5 for a grade 1 or less unit and call it when your opponent's rearguard is retired during the main phase. The grade 2 is identical to the other grade 2s. They both make a DragonTree marker and a rearguard without one, so nothing too interesting there. Next, we move on to the other supporting units. We have 2 grade 1s, 2 grade 2s, and 2 grade 3s. The grade 1s are Current Zapper Dragon and Titan. Current Zapper can counterblast 1, put itself into soul to retire an opponent's rearguard, as long as your vanguard is Griphogila. Then Titan will retire itself at the end of turn if it's on a DragonTree marker to retire an opponent's rearguard. So the deck's got access to removal, which help you proc the grade 1 wretch. Then we have the grade 2s. We have Raise Command Dragon and Wilderness Dragon. Raise Command Dragon can soul charge 1, and it gains plus 5k when it's placed if your vanguard is Griphogila. Wilderness Dragon can soul blast 1 to retire an opponent's rearguard in the same column as it when it's placed, as long as you have 3 or more DragonTree markers. Some more removal and some more soul charging, which will again help you with the grade 1 wretch. Then last we have the grade 3s, starting with Thirst Stray Dragon that gains plus 10k while being on a DragonTree marker. And then we have, similarly to the last 2, Wastelander Dragon that gains plus 2k for every DragonTree marker and plus 2k for each of your opponent's rearguard circles. This is one of the abilities that I think is a lot easier to proc because, I mean, your deck's already playing a bunch of retiring units. Might as well get some benefits from it. Overall, Dragon Empire has some nice retire and decent power. No real defensive options, but hey, you don't need to defend if your opponent's just out of the game, right? But next we have Keter Sanctuary with an insane amount of support units. This is a nation that was truly blessed by Griphogila. Keter Sanctuary has an insane amount of support with a total of 4. You heard me. There's 4, and 2 of them are the wretches that are essentially universal across all 5 nations. Even though I do think Keter Sanctuary is one of the better nations to build with Griphogila, there isn't much in the way of direct support. But let's talk quickly about the wretches. Sold as a Cobb makes a DragonTree marker and lets you draw a card when a unit is placed in front of him for a single CP, so you have some card draw. The grade 2 is identical to the other ones. Make a DragonTree marker, search for mask. And then let's quickly go over the 2 support units. Although they might be low in quantity, I think these units are very good. The first is the grade 1 Nodons that can counterblast 1 to draw a card as long as you have 3 DragonTree markers. So similar to the one we saw in Brankgate, but doesn't require to use soul. Then the last unit, again similar to the ones you've seen before, is a 15k grade 3 that gains plus 2k for each DragonTree marker. Then its second power gain ability is a bit easier to do than the others, as it gains plus 2k for every rearguard you control, and that includes itself, so even if it's just him on board, he at least becomes 17k. And with that, we end the lengthy list of Keter Sanctuary DragonTree support, which honestly I think is due to there being no mask unit in this nation, but like Dragon Empire doesn't have one, and they had 8 support units, almost double what Keter Sanctuary does. But we'll move on to the nation of Stoicheia that similar to Brankgate has 11 supporting units, which both Stoicheia and Brankgate are tied for the most support units. The 2 wretches are identical, except that Beast Ayatvas, who is a grade 1, can counterblast 1, soul blast 1 to get an order from draw to hand, so you can get your mask a little bit easier. Then we have 2 grade 1s, 5 grade 2s, and 2 grade 3s. The grade 1s are Arleth and Lapardia. Arleth lets you discard a card to draw a card when it boosts if your vanguard is Griphogila, which is very similar to Baleful Crusher from Brankgate. And by similar, I mean it's the exact same card. It's the exact same card. I don't know which one came out first, but one is copying the other. Although if they came out in the same set, I guess they just copy-pasted and changed the art. Then we have Leopardia that gives a front row rearguard plus 5k when it's boosts as long as it's not a DragonTree marker. So that's a cool effect. You get to just give power. Then we have the grade 2s, starting with Corms that is an exact copy of Zalios from Dark States. So he gets plus 5 power and shield when it's on a DragonTree marker. Following that, we have another identical card in Laubert that can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 to draw a card when it's placed if you have at least 3 DragonTree markers. This is, again, an exact copy of Gyrum Dragon from Brandgate. The last copy is Levitas Profounder that is exactly like Ray's Command Dragon from Dragon Empire. It can Soul Charge 1, it gains plus 5k when boost if your Vanguard is Griphogila. But with the copies pretty much out of the way, let's move on to some of the unique units in Mondring Loyalty. This unit retires itself at the end of turn if it's on a DragonTree marker and can get you a grade 3 or greater unit card from draw. Then the last of the grade 2s is Spry Cactus that gains boost and the ability to intercept from the back row while on a DragonTree marker. Both of these cards are pretty cool. You get to recover some units, so you can get yourself some Persona rides back. It does say grade 3 or greater unit, so you can get yourself either a grade 10 or a grade 11 to activate the Skeletogi order. Then moving on to the grade 3s, we have Azure Chain Dragon that gains boost and plus 5k during your turn if it's on a DragonTree marker. And then similarly to the other 4 nations, we have Leo Guardia that gains plus 2k for every DragonTree marker, and also plus 2k for every 5 cards in drop. Why couldn't this be for every 3 like Dark States? At least it'll be a little bit easier. I don't know if they thought it would get too out of hand, but every 5 makes it so that for a plus 10k, this needs to have 25 cards in drop, which you could probably do, but it seems a little bit unfair. But with that, we conclude all the direct support. Let's just quickly discuss the OTs, as there are some things we need to point out. Pretty much every OT is good, but there are a few weaker choices. I think Dark States OT is probably not great here, although it's strong normally because it is just a continuous ability. You're just not going to get the real benefit out of it. I believe Dark States OT is great when you pull it off early and you just get to keep that pressure the whole game. But with something like Griphogila already having 10k in a crit, and you pretty much wanting to win on your over trigger turn, I do think it's a little bit lackluster. You don't really get such a huge benefit out of it. Then we have something like Eidos Faro, who has a similar issue. It just gets you a crit and a card back. Not as great, right? Unfortunately, it's not as good. Then we have 2 choices that are just plain unusable if you're playing Vartex, and that's the Shaman King Overtrigger and the Token Rambu Overtrigger. And that's because Vartex just doesn't allow you to use these, because Vartex specifies trigger units, and both of these are trigger orders, which means that it can't activate them for its effect. The original Griphogila could, it was allowed to activate these, but Vartex, however, is just not allowed to use them because it specifies trigger units, and the trigger orders aren't that. Which is a little bit unfortunate because Shaman King OT is just so strong. Being able to just go, hey, here's a damage, you have to make sure you're always at 4, because if you go to 5 and I activate this overtrigger, you lose. It is, I believe, one of the reasons they did that, to just kind of go, hey, you're not allowed to use that one. But with that, we concluded DragonTree. Alongside this video, we'll probably be releasing the Record of Ragnarok one, so please give that video a watch. This has been Leo. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you on Cray.